Hey folks, it's Thomas from Marathon Handbook here, and today I wanted to walk you through my 26 golden rules of running. So a little while ago, I kind of set myself this challenge of trying to come up with a list of golden rules, or you could call them universal truths of running. So things that apply to almost any runner, whether you're a complete beginner, right at the start of your journey, or you've been running for a few years, or you're a veteran, a very experienced veteran. So in the end, I came up with these 26 golden rules. I've actually written them down into an ebook, which you can download for free. I'll put a link below this video and you can download it for free. But I thought I'd make this video to quickly run through each of the golden rules of running. So without further ado, let's get started. Rule number one is to start slow and short. So many runners basically bite off more than they can chew when they either start running, return to running after a break, or take on a new challenge. They suddenly increase their mileage either from zero or from something that was like a baseline, and they add on a bunch more mileage, and then usually what happens is they get injured or they burn out, and it completely wipes out their motivation. There's a good saying that says form first, then distance, then speed. That's kind of how you want to think about any progression you're making in your running. First, focus on form. Over time, you'll be able to increase your distance. Once you've got distance nailed, your speed starts to lock in. So don't make any big jumps, start slow and short. Rule number two is that it begins and ends with the running shoes. So running is one of those pursuits that you don't really need much gear to do, but the one thing you need to get right is a good pair of running shoes. So if you're a complete beginner and you don't know where to start, you should definitely go to a reputable running shoe store. They'll check you out, they'll chat to you, and they'll make some recommendations. The number one thing you want to remember is comfort is the most important factor for a pair of running shoes. So no matter what somebody's trying to convince you of or sell you, if you try on a pair of running shoes and they're not immediately comfortable, just forget about them. And having the right running shoes is equally important for experienced runners. Not only do you need to have the right pair of running shoes, you need to have the right pair of running shoes for types of runs you're doing, whether it's trail or road or somewhere in between. And you also need to remember to replace your running shoes roughly after, say, 300 to 400 miles. Running shoes do get worn out, they get old and they get tired and they lose some of their support and some of their spring, so it's important to replace running shoes. Rule number three is attack injuries head on. So there's always a bunch of statistics about the percentage of runners every year who get injured and can't train. And the truth is that while injuries are often unavoidable, your reaction to them is something you can control. And usually the people who end up having to take serious amounts of time off of running are the people who don't attack injuries head on. So when I say you want to attack an injury head on, as soon as you start to feel anything that might be a twinge of your knee, or maybe your Achilles tendon starting to flare up, you want to address it. You want to diagnose exactly what's going on. You want to figure out what your plan is going to be, whether that's just rest or a bit of rehab, and then you want to adjust accordingly. You'll be surprised the amount of times somebody who detects an injury early on responds to it quickly, and they don't even need to suspend their training. They can keep running and rehab the injury while they're still running. Rule number four is that your competition is not other people, it's actually you. So unless you're in the top 1% of elite runners, when you turn up to your local race, whether it's a 5K or a half marathon or a marathon, you're not actually turning up to try and win or beat people. You're turning up to basically run your best, maybe race against yourself, as in your previous time or a previous PR, or what you thought you were capable of. So this is more of a maxim. I tell a few athletes this every year. I have to remind them, don't compare yourself against faster runners or maybe your friends and their best times. Don't spend too much time on Strava comparing your speeds against other people's speeds. Compare yourself against your previous running. Rule number five is that variety is the fuel of a long and happy running career. So guys, it's often the case that runners get stuck in a rut, especially runners who tend to do the same route again and again. They often end up doing it at a comfortable pace, and they do it because it's part of their routine and it makes them feel good, but after a while they start to realize they're not enjoying it so much and they lose their motivation for running. So the trick to beating this is to introduce variety. So introduce different types of run workouts, and also I highly recommend signing up for events. If you sign up for an event, it totally changes the landscape of the next few months in terms of your running. Suddenly you've got a goal to train towards, and you've got some training you need to do. So it gives you structure, it forces you out of your comfort zone a bit, and you don't get stuck in that rut or routine. Rule number 6 is keep coming back to running form. There's some old Japanese Zen saying that says something like, you don't just sweep a floor once, as in a floor gets dusty and you need to sweep it regularly. And the same idea is true when it comes to running form. You don't just focus on running form right at the start of your running journey and then assume it's locked in for the next few years. It's something that you should be checking in with periodically and double checking things like your cadence, your stride, double checking that your shoulders are relaxed and that your arm swing is relaxed, double checking that position of your hips. Just maybe once every week or two, spend 10 minutes while you're out running, double checking yourself, checking that your running form is still what you think it is. It can always help to get somebody to take photos or a video of you running, and just, it can always be interesting to see the mismatch between what you think you look like when you're running and what you actually look like. So always come back to running form. Rule number 7 is strength train. When I was thinking a lot about these rules, I was thinking about cross training. When I say cross training in this context, I mean any type of exercise or activity which helps or complements your run training. So I was thinking about things like body weight work, yoga, Pilates, and I was trying to think of a rule that kind of covered them all. But at the end of the day, when I thought more about it, the truth is that for the best bang for your buck, the best thing you can do as a runner is strength train. Specifically, you want to be going to a gym and you want to be lifting weights. You don't need to be lifting big weights, but you want to be thinking about things that really work out the big muscle groups, especially the legs and the core. So you want to be thinking about exercises such as deadlifts, weighted squats, weighted lunges, kettlebell exercises, pull-ups. You want to be thinking about those big muscle group exercises which targets a bunch of your muscles, mainly your legs, but also upper body definitely doesn't hurt. This helps almost every part of your running game. It makes you stronger. It'll help your running economy. It helps your endurance. It'll also reduce your risk of injury. It's one of those rising tides that really covers all bases. So when it comes to cross training, the best thing you can do is strength train. Rule number 8 is to train your willpower. So a lot of people don't realize this, but it's been shown that willpower actually acts a lot like a muscle. As in, the more you use it and the more frequently you put stress on it, the more it grows and the more willpower you've got in the future. This is extremely useful for runners, especially those who do hard workouts or long workouts or are getting into the sort of endurance world. Once you realize that the more you use your willpower, the easier subsequent runs get, at least mentally. From a willpower perspective, it's a really powerful framing device. It's a nice way I sometimes find to sort of motivate myself when I've got a hard workout coming up. I'm not just thinking about training my body, but I'm also thinking about training my willpower or training my mind. I'm telling myself, if I go and do this hard workout, it actually makes every subsequent hard workout easier because I've trained my willpower. Rule number 9 is to be seasonal. Just like in nature and in almost everything else in life, you'll find that most runner schedules are somewhat seasonal. They'll often be linked to races, often in the spring and then in the autumn, and you kind of structure your training calendar around it. So it ends up kind of looking like a sine wave where you've got periods of high intensity and high volume and periods when you're basically taking a break from running and your mileage is minimal and it's just kind of, you're in maintenance mode. Often over the winter, people go into maintenance mode. It's a good time you can focus on something else. It can be another sport or another pursuit. And then once you're into January, you can start to ramp up the miles again and start thinking about those races for the new year. Rule number 10 is go further with the run-walk method. Now, this is something that a lot of runners turn their nose up at, but it can be a very effective tool. So the run-walk method basically is where you break up your run into intervals of running and walking. And it's usually associated with things like the Couch to 5K program to get people trained to be able to run for 5 kilometers without stopping. But I've seen people successfully use the run-walk method in ultramarathons, a 100 kilometer and 100 miles event with great success. When you take regular walking breaks, you're reducing the strain on your leg muscles and your overall system. So really you're kind of giving yourself a mini break, which often means you can go for much, much further. So don't write off the run walk method, especially if you're approaching a new distance and you've got doubts whether you're going to be able to run the whole way. My advice is consider adopting a run walk strategy from the start. Rule number 11 is that morning is the best time to go for a run. I realize this is bad news for a lot of people watching this, especially people who like to stay in bed, but the truth is that if you want to develop a consistent running habit, the best chances of success of doing that are if you consistently go for morning runs. It means you've got to set your alarm, you've usually got to get out of bed before anybody else does, and you've got to go running when the rest of the world's asleep. It can be a bit of a pain, but it means that you consistently are prioritizing your running. A lot of people, if they try and leave their running till the end of the day, it ends up getting sidelined for other things, or they're fatigued, so they find an excuse to cancel their run. If you put your run up front at the start of the day, you're much more likely to follow through and develop a consistent running habit. Rule number 12 is always log your runs. So nowadays, almost everybody's got some kind of activity tracker, whether it's an Apple Watch or a Garmin or whatever. So there's no real excuse for not logging your runs. It takes almost no effort. And even for those people who aren't very performance focused and don't really care about speed and things like that, if you log your runs, all you're doing is creating a database of all your workouts, which you can consult anytime, years in the future. And if that's not a good thing, I don't know what is. Rule number 13 is sprint. It benefits all other areas of your fitness. So yeah, sprinting benefits all other areas of your fitness. Not only is it great for your running, as in it improves your running speed, your running economy, the strength of your leg muscles, it also is a great high intensity workout, which has knock-on effects to your cardiovascular fitness. And it basically is like an all-round great workout for anybody. Long distance runners especially are guilty of neglecting sprinting. They often get into this mindset of they just need to go for medium paced long runs as they're training, but they're totally missing out. Sprinting is going to make them faster, it's going to help their endurance, it's going to make them better runners, it's going to make them stronger. So sprint, it benefits all areas of your fitness. Rule number 14 is listen to your body, run based on RPE. RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion. Guys, I've already made a video all about RPE and why I love it so much. It's basically a scale of 1 to 10 where you gauge how hard you're running at any one moment on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the minimal exertion and 10 being an all-out sprint. Once you learn this scale, it's super handy. It's something you can reference whenever you're running. You know exactly how hard you're running. It also takes into account a bunch of internal and external factors, such as the weather or trails, or how tired you are, or how much energy you've got, that traditional metrics like running pace don't account for. So one of the best pieces of advice I can give to any runner is get familiar with the RPE scale and start to train based on RPE. Rule number 15 is in order to improve, you need a plan. And I'm speaking specifically about training plans. Guys, whether you're training for a marathon or you just want to get faster, the best way to do it is design a plan or use a plan such as one of our plans to get yourself there. You're here and you want to get there, and the best way to do it is draw a line, which is your plan, and then stick to it. Plans are a great accountability tool because you don't wake up in the morning and think, should I go for a run? Am I in the mood to go for a run? You wake up in the morning and you look at your plan and you know what run you have to do to get to where you need to be. So if you want to improve, you need a plan. Rule number 16 is you know best when to rest. So maybe you're following a training plan, but you're starting to feel a little bit of burnout or fatigue, or you're feeling like you're never getting enough time to recover. In which case, you know best when it's time for you to take a rest day. And if in doubt, take a rest day. Every training plan should be flexible enough that you can take a rest day when needed. Your running coach can help you with this, but again, it really comes down to the individual and you know best when to rest. Rule number 17 is rest is not time off, it's recharging. So this is all really about reframing the context of rest. A lot of runners, especially when you're really caught up with your training plan, you see a rest day coming up and you actually get restless. You actually want to go out and fill that day doing some form of activity. It's important to recognize the importance of a rest day. The rest day is there for a reason. It's there to help you relax, recover, and recharge. So then when you come back to the next workout, you're ready to go. Rule number 18 is that carbohydrates equal fuel. So it's easy to forget this, but it's worth reiterating the fact that as you run, 75% roughly of the energy you need comes from carbohydrates. Usually that's carbohydrates that you've consumed before your run, but it can also be carbohydrates that you consume during your run. And guys, this is coming from somebody. I've experimented a lot with low carb, high fat diets. I've been keto and I've done experiments to see its effect on my ability to go for long runs. And I can only reiterate the fact that even nowadays, I often stick to quite a low carb diet, but before I go for a run, unless it's an easy run, before I go for any kind of run where I know I need to perform, I'm eating carbs. So carbohydrates equals fuel. Rule number 19 is that consistency is the key to long-term success. So this is really a reminder for most of you that if you want to have a long and happy running career, which you find rewarding, and you avoid injury as much as possible, you need to be consistent. You can't be going for long runs and then take massive breaks off running. You need to be showing up consistently, and that way over a long period of time, you're gonna see the sort of compound interest effects, and you're gonna get the benefits. And rule number 20 is that it's better to be slightly undertrained than overtrained. So this is a nice reminder for anybody who's preparing for a race and you're starting to doubt whether you've had enough time to get ready. It's always worth turning up to that start line slightly underprepared rather than slightly overprepared, because slightly overprepared means that you're likely to be injured or you're not going to perform your best. If you're slightly underprepared, you might not be at your best, but you're going to be humble, you're going to be dialing things back, and you're going to be ready to see the challenges ahead. So guys, that was a quick whistle-stop tour of the first 20 of the 26 golden rules of running. You can get the full ebook, which has got loads of bonus stuff for free if you click on the link below. And you can also let me know what you think of the rules I've shared today. And if you've got any rules in particular that you like, let me know. I can maybe make a full video on any one of these rules. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.